Boys, UFC Fight Night Vettori vs Dolidze tour is just wrapped up, and this was a surprisingly good card. I didn't really expect it to be this good, but not to spoil too much, we'll jump straight into it. And the first fight of the card was Yuneisy Duben versus Carli Judice. I predicted that Duben was going to get around 2 KO. Turns out Carli Judice actually finished Duben within the first round, which I didn't expect. The fight started off at a very high pace within the first round. They were both sort of blitzing and throwing their respective combinations in the pocket, but Duben's punches were doing a bit more damage, I thought. But that didn't really matter, because at one point, Carli Judice just lands this head kick while Duben's hands are sort of at her hips and just puts Duben out. So yeah, Carli Judice won that one by a knockout. And following that fight was Josiane Nunes versus Priscila Cachoeria. Now, I predicted that Josiane Nunes was going to take this to a decision and win. I was actually wrong. Cachoeria finished Nunes within the first round, and in the first round, they open up, same situation as the last fight, very high pace. It's almost like they saw the last fight and tried to like up it one. But Cachoeria is throwing this same 1-2 over and over again. That's landing and racking up points, but not really doing much damage to Nunes, while Nunes is just swinging for the hills, trying to knock Cachoeria out quickly. Cachoeria actually starts slowing down later in the fight, and he's getting tagged with these shots. And then out of nowhere, just lands this Gaethje-like uppercut on Nunes and just puts her out, knocking her out in the first round and finishing that fight. Moving up the prelims, we had Daniel Barez versus Andre Lima. I predicted that Andre Lima was going to take it to a decision win. I was actually wrong. He did win, but it was by a round 3 submission. So round 1 opens up. Lima's targeting the legs of Barez mainly, just really chopping at them, chopping at the calf especially. That really sort of damaged Barez. On top of that, he's throwing shots over the top that are landing, and he's just ripping the body later in the round. And Barez didn't really strike back that much in the first, and his only real contribution to the first was landing a takedown that he didn't really do much with, so the first round was very clearly Lima's. Second round, Lima comes out targeting the leg again and ripping the body, especially this round, and we can start to see Barez sort of visibly damaged by these body shots especially, but also the legs, and he's thrown off balance a lot easier this round, so he's really hurt this round. And there's a point where he gets pushed up against the fence and just elbowed to the head, like just over and over and over again by Lima, and I thought this was going to finish him, but Lima ends up taking him to the ground with a takedown and closes out round 2 with another Lima round. And then round 3 starts, and Lima takes Barez down early and sort of slowly moves him to the corners of the octagon towards the cage, and it's there that Lima takes the back of Barez and finishes the fight with a rear naked choke. Moving on from that, we had Stephanie Luciano versus Sam Hughes. Now, I predicted that Stephanie Luciano would take this one by a decision. It did actually go to a decision, granted a split decision, and Sam Hughes ended up winning this, although the decision was very, very close, and I could have really scored it both ways. But let's break it down. Round 1, they both came out with a really fast pace and were throwing to sort of different parts of the body. A lot of leg kicks as well to start it off. It was really hard to score this round because Luciano was sort of outlanding on the feet and sort of doing a bit more damage to Sam Hughes this round. But Sam Hughes got 2 takedowns throughout the round and racked up a little bit of control time, so it was kind of hard to score this one. Moving on to round 2, Luciano came out stronger than the first, and she was landing some pretty good combinations on Hughes and catching her whenever Hughes would like blitz in with these sort of counter shots. But the tide of this round flipped as soon as Hughes landed a takedown and almost submitted Luciano with a choke that was really, really tightly locked in. Somehow Luciano escapes, but that doesn't matter because Hughes just starts raining down ground and pound and sort of dominates her on the ground for the whole round, and that sort of scores round 2 in favour of Hughes. Round 3 starts, and it's a very, very low volume round. You can tell that both Luciano and Hughes are very sort of exhausted from the past rounds, and Luciano's just defending anything Hughes would try and take her down with. Luciano landed more volume in this round, and near the end she sort of really picked up her pace, and you could see the damage showing on Sam Hughes' face, so I think that one would definitely be a Luciano round. Overall, it went to the cards, and it was a split decision given to Hughes, and for some reason some judge gave her a 10-8 for round 2. I don't think it was, but I mean, whatever. And yeah, Sam Hughes took this one by a split decision. On to the next fight, we have Carlos Vera versus Josias Musasa. Now, I thought Josias Musasa was going to knock Carlos Vera out very, very quickly and in a pretty brutal fashion. I was very wrong. Carlos Vera ended up submitting Josias Musasa, and I'm just going to break this one down for a second. Both fighters came out really early, targeting the legs, sort of trying to tie their opponent down. And you could tell that Vera had Ryan Hall in his corner, because every single time Musasa would either knock him down or take him down, Vera would just lie on his back and start kicking his legs up. You know what I'm talking about if you've watched any Ryan Hall fight. Sort of what happened with Ilya. And then out of nowhere, Carlos Vera, sort of foreshadowing, landed this hard spinning wheel kick on Musasa that didn't even wobble him. And at that point I was thinking, man, maybe Musasa can take this. And he was piecing him up on the feet. He was doing like decent footwork. He had good striking. It looked very good for Musasa. But then out of nowhere, Vera lands his head kick, which doesn't put Musasa out completely, but puts him down. He dives on him and then submits him with a rear naked choke, finishing in the first round. Yeah, this one was a weird one. Moving on to the second last prelim fight, we had Suyoung You versus AJ Cunningham. I predicted that Suyoung You would win, and I was correct, but the method I was not. I said he'd knock him out in the third round. He actually got a decision win. Entering round one, it was a very low volume round, and you landed some good body kicks and sort of landed some good straights that would wobble Cunningham every now and then, but it wasn't anything major. And then just to top it off, he landed a takedown halfway through the round and secured dominant positioning just to sort of win that round. Round two, also a very low volume round, still sort of more cautious, both of the fighters. You landed some more powerful shots and scored a takedown with dominant positioning and sort of dominated that round as well. AJ did get in sort of a half triangle choke that wasn't really secured, so it didn't really count for much, but you know, it was something. And then round three, just you takes Cunningham down halfway through the round and just puts him there and just keeps him there. And at one point he gets this arm triangle where I fully thought AJ was dead. Like, I thought he was out. He was sitting there, his face was borderline purple. It was like glowing with how red and purple it was. And his mouth was just agape, and I fully thought he was out. He wasn't, but oh, it was close. And yeah, so Suyoung You took it to the decision and won it. And closing out the prelims, we have Waldo Cortes Acosta versus Ryan Spann. Now, I predicted that Ryan Spann was going to take it to a decision and just sort of rack up rounds and win. I was wrong. Waldo Cortes Acosta actually won, and it was by a round 2 knockout. So round 1 opens up and both of them come out just targeting the legs. That was a very common thing I saw this card. A lot of sort of leg targeting to start off the fight. And it was sort of, for the first round, a battle of Ryan Spann's sort of jab and cross versus Acosta's overhand. And just Acosta was just landing the overhand more often and really dazing and wobbling Spann. There was a point in the middle of the round where they were sort of both throwing and both hitting each other very heavy and sort of dazing and wobbling each other. But overall, just Acosta was just landing the heavier hits more often and took that first round. Round 2 was a really messy round to start. There were 2 cup shots and a incorrect eye poke call. But Cortes was winning. It was pretty obvious. He was sort of dazing Spann consistently. And when the round was about to end, Acosta lands a hook that put Spann down before literally like holding his head in place and just punching it. It looked very, very bad. Like, it was very violent. Spann was out and Acosta was just pounding his head. Took it home and called out Tuivasa and Derek Lewis, which I actually really like that idea. So, you know, let's run one of those up. And to start off the main card, we had Suengwoo Choi versus Kevin Vallejos. Now, I predicted that Kevin Vallejos was going to get this done by a round 1 KO, and I was correct. Let's go. So the fight opens up. Choi's throwing these kicks just to different parts of the body, but none of them are really landing. But he is fighting with his legs for the sort of first half of the fight, trying to land these body kicks, and he'll land the occasional leg kick, but he wasn't landing anything major. And Vallejos was sort of staying back on the sort of... He was taking the center of the octagon, but he was sort of on his back foot, sort of reading the patterns of Choi. And then he comes in with this blitz, and by the way, this kid has insane speed with the blitz. Like, he gets in there and out so quickly, and he starts sort of throwing these combos to test the waters. And around the middle of the round, Choi gets hit with this counter straight right, which is the point where Vallejos has sort of downloaded his whole moveset. He drops Choi with that. Choi gets back up again, and while sort of back to the cage trying to survive, Choi gets hit with this overhand right as Vallejos blitzes in and gets put down and put away with some ground and pound in the first round, ending the fight, and Kevin Vallejos won that one. And following that fight, we had Diyar Nurgozhay versus Brendson Ribeiro. So I predicted that Diyar Nurgozhay was going to take it to a decision and just win by out-voluming Ribeiro. I was wrong. Brendson Ribeiro actually won this one. So opening the fight, most of the round, Nurgozhay sort of had Ribeiro on his back foot. He was pushing the pace. He wasn't throwing much, but there was that constant threat, and Ribeiro sort of had his back to the cage for a lot of it. And then around a minute and a half left within the first round, Ribeiro drops Nurgozhay with this left hook, and following that, Ribeiro sort of finds his groove, and the position switch, Ribeiro sort of gets on the front foot, Nurgozhay sort of backing up to the cage, and that leads to the second round where Nurgozhay instantly tries to take Ribeiro down. He actually gets it, but then while on top position, he gets a Kimura locked in on him by Ribeiro from bottom position. And then he does this sort of roll to try and get over, and while on bottom position, the Kimura is still in, and he ends up tapping, finishing the fight in the second round with Brendson Ribeiro taking home a second round submission win. And may I say, Nurgozhay has the weirdest tick in the UFC. He does this thing where he like wipes his eyes, but it looks really bad. It looks like he's been hit with something, and I thought I missed something because he kept doing it, but no, it's a tick he has. But oh my god, it looks so bad. Moving on up the card, we had Damon Blackshear versus Cody Gibson. Now, I predicted that Damon Blackshear was actually going to take it by a decision. Damon Blackshear did win, but not by a decision. So, first round, Gibson starts very, very strong. In fact, probably the strongest out of everyone on the card. He just starts giving everything pretty much he has to sort of batter and beat Blackshear up against the cage. He starts targeting the body a lot, he starts targeting the head a lot, and he almost finishes him. Like, he gets him very, very wobbly at multiple points. However, Blackshear comes back in the second end of the sort of second half of the round, and he starts sort of getting Gibson on the back foot. Gibson shoots a takedown, and Blackshear gets like a half guillotine while getting taken down, and he uses it to sort of transition to sort of multiple chokes, which none of them he actually gets in, but sort of threatens, and it makes the first round a bit weird score, but overall I think Gibson still won it. Second round opens, and they're both sort of trading these combinations, and Gibson sort of takes Blackshear down to switch it up, but then gets top position reversed and Blackshear gets on top. He sort of spins around and gets into a crucifix before just elbowing Gibson, and once Gibson sort of focused on the elbows raining down, he sneaks in a Kimura and ends the fight that way. And the next fight on the card was Alexander Hernandez versus Kurt Holobaugh. Now, I predicted that Alexander Hernandez would win by decision, and I got that one 100% correct, which is nice. Round one opens, and Hernandez is really, really fast. He's sort of ducking in and out of the range of Holobaugh, and whenever Holobaugh would throw something, he'd be out of range. He'd dip in, sort of throw a nice combo, then back out again. And he looked very fast and slick on his feet. Hernandez, he later in the round takes down Holobaugh, and Holobaugh sort of gets in this guillotine, but he doesn't really lock it in properly, so it's not really anything that effective, and overall Hernandez sort of wins that round. Round two starts, and they're sort of, Holobaugh's made a bit of a comeback, and he's sort of tagging Hernandez with these really damaging shots to the head, and you start to see this damage sort of wearing on Holobaugh. Hernandez tries to take down Holobaugh, and he manages to get him on the ground and secure a bit of top position with ground and pound, but overall it just wasn't enough for the consistency of Holobaugh's power punches throughout that round. So down to the third round, Hernandez scores a takedown right as the round starts and maintains top position pretty much for half the round. Holobaugh's trying to buck him off, but it just isn't working. And then they stand up, it goes to their feet for around 2 minutes, but then Hernandez regains top position and finishes the fight on top. Overall, the top position sort of won him that round, and he won the whole fight just through winning sort of round 3 and round 1. It was pretty close, and I think the scorecards didn't really reflect that, but in the end, Hernandez took it home by a decision win. And now we arrive at the co-main event of the evening. Chidi Nurgozhay, or Chidi Chidi Bang Bang, as I found out, versus Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Now, I predicted that dos Santos was going to take it by a decision. I was very wrong. Nurgozhay actually finished dos Santos in the second. So starting off round 1, Nurgozhay was just basically only throwing kicks, and he wasn't even throwing him to the head. It was mainly just to the leg and body to keep distance, with Dos Santos being the taller fighter. It sort of worked out. Dos Santos sort of had no other option except to try and blitz in and land some combinations, and while he found some success, usually it would just result in Nurgozhay ducking and weaving out the way and then continuing to target the body and legs with his longer sort of kicks. And near the end of the round, Dos Santos took down Nurgozhay and holds him against the cage for the rest of the round, but nothing significant on his behalf. I think it probably went to Nurgozhay that first round. Round 2 opens up and Dos Santos is still kept at range by Nurgozhay's kicks. He can't really find any openings to sort of blitz in, and the one time he tries to, he gets clinched, knee to the head, dropped, and then finished with 12-6 elbows, finishing the fight in the second round, and Chidi Nurgozhay takes that one. And now on to the main event, Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze 2, the rematch. I predicted that Roman Dolidze was just going to out-volume Vettori on his way to a decision win in a somewhat dominant fashion. I was very much correct. That's pretty much exactly what happened, and my explanation for it was also pretty much bang on, which is nice. Now, before I get into it, this fight was war. Like, this is, when Sean Strickland says they're going to war, this is what he imagines. In reality, it's a little less, but this fight was so fun to watch. So, round 1, actually, you know what, before round 1, Vettori off to a bad start. He forgot his cup. He has to get changed behind one of like the ornamental curtains in the apex, which I never thought I'd see, but I'm glad I did. So the round 1 starts, they sort of meet in the middle, and Dolidze is just clipping Vettori consistently every time they'd enter the pocket. Vettori would land 1 or 2, and they would be more damaging than anything Dolidze would throw, but consistently Dolidze was just sort of winning these exchanges in the pocket. Vettori started targeting the legs to begin with, but he sort of gave up on that, and it just wasn't enough to win any rounds. Round 2, Roman kept striking with his fingers out, and this caused an eye poke, and later they were threatening sort of point deductions if he kept doing it. In fact, they did this at multiple points during the fight, and even like in the 4th round, Herb kept coming over and reminding him, keep the fingers in. Anyway, the pace increases, and Dolidze is landing more volume in the exchanges, and Vettori's starting to show this damage a bit more. Granted, Dolidze is also starting to turn a bit red in the face, and it does look really bad every time Vettori would land, but consistently Dolidze would just outstrike. Granted, less power, but he was landing more. Round 3, Vettori really hurts Dolidze with a straight down the middle very early on in the round, and makes him resort to trying to take him down. Vettori sort of tried to chase Dolidze around the octagon to finish him, but eventually just gave up on that because Dolidze sort of started to come to again. And Dolidze didn't really land anything major in that round, so this sort of looked like a comeback round for Vettori. He won round 3 in my opinion. Round 4, Dolidze pushes the pace on Vettori, and it's just back to round 1 and 2 again. He actually lands a really nasty knee down the middle that cuts him open. The sound it makes sort of reminded me of Sean vs. Cheeto. It just proves that Vettori just has a chin of granite. Marvin also looked to be slowing down here, which I sort of predicted. I said, it's with such a long time out of the octagon with so many injuries, I don't think he'll be able to survive 5 rounds. He only really did well in that first one because it was 3 rounds, and I said with the 5 rounds plus the layoff, it's not looking good for Vettori. And then Dolidze also near the end lands some huge shots and even a spinning elbow that Vettori somehow eats. Once again, I just have no idea how this guy hasn't been knocked out yet. Round 5, Marvin starts to throw some nice combos at the start, and he has some good volume, but he just tires very quickly. You can see it. And he gets kicked in the cup and has a weirdly quick turnaround to such a direct cup shot, but that's neither here nor there. And yeah, once again, Dolidze just does the same thing he did round 1, 2, and 4. He just out-volumes him, puts a pace on him. Vettori's tired now, he's not throwing as much. Every time he would throw, he'd need sort of a couple of seconds to recover before he throws again. And overall, 49-46, the cards went to Dolidze, and he took it home in a very dominant fashion. He called out on the mic, he called out Adesanya and Whitaker. Realistically, I don't think he should be fighting in the top 5 yet. He just beat a number 8 ranked Vettori. Give him someone like Cannonier or Bolaro, preferably Cannonier, because I kind of want to see a Bolaro-Whitaker matchup in the future. But yeah, and I guess for Vettori, give him sort of someone like a Brendan Allen, lower in the rankings and on a losing streak. But yeah, Dolidze took it home the rematch win. and that was the card. So guys, that'll be it. That was UFC Fight Night Vettori versus Dolidze 2. I actually kind of went into this card trying to hate it. You know, I was like, this is going to be a really bad card because it didn't really have that many ranked fighters on it, and the star power wasn't amazing on it. But I've come around to it. This one had some really fun fights. It had some really crazy knockouts, especially early on in the card I didn't expect. Moving on to how I did this card, I got 46% of all my predictions correct when it came to who would win the fight, and of those win predictions I got correct, I guessed the method by 67%, which I think is actually pretty decent. Cam actually kind of shit on me this card. He got 54% of his predictions correct, so we're 1 for 1 currently. Where I would rank this card, I was going to put it at the bottom of D, but this card was consistently good, so you know what, I might move it up above 312 and put it at the top of D tier for now. Yeah, not much else to say. Next week, UFC London, very excited for that one. Prediction video coming soon for that, and yeah, bye bye.